Welcome everybody to the Alternative Sports Show, powered by Verge Magazine. I'm Matthew Conor, running this thing solo for once, and I'm really excited to say that we've got kind of a reunion thing going on. A former colleague of mine, you may have seen this lady across UFC broadcasts with BT, interviewing your favourite fighters, Caroline Pearce, the reunion. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Oh my gosh, it's been so long from those early days in North London TV studio, and it's great to see you. I'm so glad you got in touch. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you, of course, for happily, or somehow, I always assume that everyone forgets who I am. I don't want to ever be that person that walks into a room and be like, hey, dude, remember me? But, thank you so much for, kindly reaching out. We finally managed to find a time where we could both, be available, as how busy we are, despite it being still semi-pandemic-y, lockdowny. I don't know anymore. It's been a madness.
Yeah.
Caroline, I want to know, from when we had last met many, many years ago, working out of a humble little TV studio out of Kentish Town, to now not only being a fitness expert and being a TV presenter for BT with UFC. Firstly, how do you introduce yourself? When you go to a dinner party, how do you say, hi, I'm Caroline, what do you do? What's the answer?
That's a really interesting question, because I do feel like I wear a lot of different hats, from everything I do in, whether it's UFC, boxing, television, other sports that I've covered, and then the fitness industry and what I do as a trainer, as a brand representative. So the answer is, it depends who I'm talking to. So it depends what event I'm at and who I'm talking to. Whether I read the room, are these people going to be more interested in the sports side of what I do? But it's funny, I can talk about many of the things I'm proud of, but then I'll say one thing, whether it's the bobsledding I used to do or gladiators, and then that's the one thing that people are interested in. But I've been so fortunate to do an array of different things. So yeah, it depends on who I'm talking to.
What's so fascinating, Caroline? Because of course, like back when we first met, you were probably one of the more, I would say, cooler people I'd ever worked with, because I was like, wow, this person, we'd say, wow, this person's a former gladiator. Like, this is incredible. And, we were filming you show, demonstrate what you know in the fitness world. And now it's almost repeated itself, because now I'm like, wow, Caroline's a caller. She gets to interview UFC fighters. And one of the things that has been kind of deeply fascinating to me is, for yourself, you juggle the fitness world and TV presenting in sport, UFC, and of course, you have worked across many other networks as you had made your move from UK to being out stateside, based in LA. Yeah. What has been the key to yourself as a person wanting to juggle those different things? I don't think enough people do that generally, because I think everyone has, a lot of people have a lot of talents, but you found a way to balance both worlds for yourself.
Yeah.
How do you do it, and how do you keep that so relevant to yourself?
Yeah, it can be a blessing and a curse, and I'll talk about that. But I think it stems from, as an athlete, I compete for Great Britain in heptathlon. Exactly, and for those people that know and heard of Denise Lewis's and Jessica Ennis's, heptathlon's the 7 track and field events. So I just loved variety from a young age. It's like, well, okay, your sprint, hurdles, and long jump are your strongest disciplines, but wow, I can do all of them, and I can train for all these different events, and I get to compete, and one event maybe didn't go so well, there's 6 others across the 2 days that I can make up points for. So I've always liked the challenge, the variety in the work that I do, and that's kind of carried over. And when I my career ended as an athlete through injury, bone on bone in my left knee, I'd done track and field, I'd gone on to do bobsledding as well. I had a short stint with the British team bobsledding until my injury sort of put me into retirement. So again, it was like, well, you're going from track to bobsled, this sort of all this kind of variety. But I'd studied sports science and nutrition physiology at Loughborough University. I'd got my 2 degrees, and I wanted to use that. And that's how that sort of natural transition into the fitness, well-being, health industry, if you like, came, and the very first role that I had, and still have now almost 20 years later, was with Powerplate, the vibration training machines that some people may have heard about. And that job, from a young age, just at the end of my master's degree, to where I am now, took me around the world, put me out in America filming infomercials and television and appearing on Good Morning shows and all the rest of it. So through that, I got this taste for what I'd had with my own sport, which was a kind of performing on stage and feeling like, I was taking what I'd learned and trained hard with and performing it in the same way you do as an athlete. So it sort of fast forward to get in the show Gladiators, and again that sense of television and that kind of adrenaline that it gave me. And I thought, how can I marry that sports love that I have and my background with fitness and well-being and so forth, and being on camera. And sports broadcasting was where I sort of found my passion. And it just has been this sort of snowball of different opportunities. And I've always just said, my motto has always been say yes and learn. And as things have come my way, or I've manifested certain things or tried to educate myself in certain areas, I feel like those just sort of picked up sort of new skills and new interests along the way. If you told me back then when we first, knew one another, I'd be covering UFC, I would have said, I can name 2 fighters, if that. I don't think I'll be doing UFC. So it's been really a case of just being open to opportunities and sort of craving that variety and working hard at different things, really. And when I say it can be a curse, sometimes I think, am I doing enough in any one field as to if I was just doing one? But this is the life that I love, and I've managed to combine the two best that I can.
I love the fact that you touched upon this, to almost say yes to anything kind of approach. It was something I picked up in watching your previous interviews, and it's something that I find very relatable. It's why this weird accident of myself asking you the questions is a thing, because I had a friend, shout out to my good friend Andre, who runs this with me, and wanted me to do Formula One content with him and work into that industry, and love Formula One very much. And we continue to do that. And I thought, yeah, why not? It was pandemic, and now we're here talking from athletes and presenters and broadcasters of all kind of industries. And of course, I've seen in previous interviews, UFC, as you haven't failed to mention, of course, you were very open about not really knowing a lot about UFC starting out, and getting into that business was almost a bit of an accident. So how did that come about, where on your table, hey, Caroline, fancy a bit of the UFC?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when BT Sport were about to launch, I think it was 2013 as a channel, we were already myself and my management were already in conversation with them, and I wanted to be part of their MotoGP lineup, because Formula One, I'm a huge motorsports fan, always have been. I love my cars, etc. So we were pushing for opportunities, and MotoGP was where I wanted to be. But that season wasn't starting or kicking off with BT for several more months. So I remember we sort of having these conversations. You go in 2 or 3 times. It was Grant Best, heading up the network at the time that I was talking to. And that was it. You just wait and you think, well, hopefully there'd be an opportunity for me. And I was actually on a holiday. I think it was in the June or July. The channel was launching in August, with my boyfriend at the time. And it was in the days where you could put your mobile phone in the safe in the room and just leave it. I think I picked it out that safe to check for an emergency from family or whatever, see if there's anything going on, once or twice during the week. Like, that phone was not taking videos and photos all day long like it does now. And I took the phone out of the safe, and I had all these messages from my agent, my manager, and he was saying, BT Sport want to offer you a job to cover the UFC. And I was like, UFC, have they got this? I thought they'd had it wrong. I was like, too much about the UFC. And anyway, sort of got on the phone, and he said, yeah, they're doing a magazine show. It's going to be a live show every well, it wasn't going to be live originally. That was a later edition. It's going to be a show every I think it was Tuesday we had our show, rounding up all the action. And that was a case of, okay, say yes and learn. And I say that a lot, say yes and learn. And we spent the rest of that trip, because my boyfriend at the time was a former fighter, not a UFC fighter, but he was a national judo champion, British sort of university judo champion, and had fought some amateur mixed martial arts. So that was it. The rest of that trip was just learning everything, and he was beyond excited, because, wow, we're going to get to watch fights all the time. I'd watch fights, obviously, but I wasn't by any means, following it intensely the way I do now. So I got back, and it soon turned into, well, it's actually going to be live. This show's going to be live. And it was a tough beginning, because what people don't realize, I was talking about this earlier in the week about live studio television, for example, is I'm not just there having a conversation. There are many things going on, from 3 or 4 people talking in my ear, to the cameras, to me, producer, director, to, knowing my counts in and out of different segments, to what camera, to interacting with the guest, my co-host, Gareth A. Davis, who was a wealth of knowledge, and I learned so much from. So not only was it the first time I'd presented at that level, I'd done a lot of reporting and so forth, but I was then trying to remember names of gazillion fighters that are just tape I've watched. It's not when you're either there or you've watched it over the years, like now, 8 years later, it's just there. Those names are there, who everybody means. But when you're trying to desperately try and picture the face, and you've got your producer writing out the names phonetically sometimes for you because don't come naturally. It was tough, and I got a lot of stick to begin with from the diehard fans. Not so much for our Beyond the Octagon show, because that was a lot of fun, and I was guiding the action, and we had our fighters and experts. But once we moved into covering the actual live broadcast, there was one event where I got a lot of criticism. And I remember thinking, have I bitten off more than I can chew? Have I ruined this for myself, and I'm not going to get opportunities? But it was a funny event where our world feed went down. There was nothing in my ear. All those kind of things went on. And I think the team were just happy that we kept going. So fast forward, and then people didn't know who I was in the UFC space, whereas I knew I could relate to athletes. I've been an athlete, I've covered other sports, etc. But it took me a while to earn my stripes and get both the trust and respect of the fans. And you always get the odd critique here and there. That's part and parcel of it. You develop a thick skin pretty quickly. But I fell in love with the sport very quickly. The more fighters I met, their families that would come onto set, the events that I came to, I just thought, I'm an athlete. I can relate to how hard they work, the discipline, the multidiscipline nature of fights, MMA, because I was a heptathlete. I did a multidiscipline sport. So fell in love with the sport, had huge respect and admiration for all the fighters, and very quickly found in the UK, as I'm sure you're aware, I'm up at 3 a.m. on my own watching fights. And it was really doing that then opened the door to working for UFC Fight Pass, coming out to the events here in the States, and ultimately my move here. So something that I would never have thought would be part of my life is one of the biggest parts of my life right now. It's kind of crazy.
It's incredible as well, because even back in the day where UFC still wasn't a household kind of company, company in many people's minds, of course, now the way that it's covered, and huge, especially in the UK, huge thanks to BT, is now we're fortunate to have many household names. So almost now it's like you will hear some name and be like, okay, you can connect the dots to it being related to UFC. And of course, it's so fascinating actually that MotoGP is that's such a cool little Easter egg. And I can relate to you on the fact of not knowing a sport and not maybe not knowing much about it, because we had it with here on this channel where we would get given opportunities by BT Sport to promote certain events and broadcasts, and of course MotoGP being it. And we twice interviewed Brad Binder, and for me going into that, I said, hey, look, I'm going to be really honest. I don't really know a lot about MotoGP, but here, us as a network and myself learning this trade, I want to learn. So I then start to apply and understand why they would love that sport.
And they respect that. I feel like, people respect just honesty and sharing a little bit about yourself. I remember it was an event for UFC Fight Pass in Japan, and Josh Barnett was the main event. Now, this was an event I did for Fox Sports. So I then got the opportunity to be the kind of Asian, Europe, British representative for Fight Pass at, those events. So the first time to Tokyo with the Saitama Arena. And I remember at the weigh-ins, Josh Bennett was very just I mean, look, he's a heavyweight, it's not he's cutting weight, but just a little bit kind of just polite, but not doesn't know who I am. It's just a very kind of coldish style of interview, which, is hard when you don't know people. But I got chatted to his coach afterwards, and the coach was asking, he said, oh, you look in shape, what do you do? And I told him, I was a bobsledder for Great Britain, I was an athlete, blah, blah. Fast forward the next night, Josh Barnett had won, and we were about to interview him. And his coach must have said, oh, that girl, he was a whole different person. There was suddenly like this spark had been, lit in him, and he could relate. He was like, I'm talking to an athlete, I'm talking to someone who gets it. And I really appreciated that. And I found over the years, even when I didn't have that much MMA experience, that being able to share my background as an athlete just did garner that respect. And I always appreciated that. And I've always found the fighters are just so friendly usually. I mean, there's the odd one if they're weight cutting, of course, they're not probably wanting to do the interview at, just before or after the weigh-ins, etc. But they've always been, I think fighters can get this image sometimes from people that don't know the sport, that it's brutal and it's violent and the type of person they might be. But I've only met, really good family guys and girls, and, just great camaraderie, dedicated to what they do and wanting to give their time to grow their sport and their own brand. So I've always appreciated that. And, you said with BT Sport, they've done such a great job from the beginning. BT Sport have been so innovative in everything they've done, from the fight build-up work, the post-fights, all the animations, and it's just gone from strength to strength. And feel so proud that I was there from the beginning, that I was, you know, the first person working with them on the sport, and they've stuck with me through me learning and navigating. And, you know, I've continued to want to be a part of that team and go from strength to strength, and the team's grown. And, you know, I do a lot more. I was in a really thankful position during the pandemic, being here in Los Angeles. The UK can't come out here. So I really got the opportunity to do the events at the UFC Apex and so forth, as well as some boxing opportunities as well. So it's nice, hopefully for them and for me, that I'm positioned here, because you can't forever be flying everyone 11 hours or whatever it is backwards and forwards. So it's been an incredible family, really, to feel like you're part of something from the beginning is quite special.
And it's the word family for me was what was ringing in my head the whole time you started talking about BT, because that's one thing that I look up to on this silly, weird journey of me talking to people. I look at the team and the people that cover UFC within UFC, whether that's yourself, Adam Catterall, Nick P, Dan Hardy. And it just feels like that environment of, you know, one, breaking it down for maybe a common fan and the people that might be a bit more insider. There's just such a wonderful presentation of that broadcast. And I guess for you, Caroline, when it comes down to like, right, it's time to get into work mode. It's now to be TV presenter Caroline. We've got a UFC event coming up. What is, in a sense, for you, almost like, what is day one as far as prep, build up, and what's the run up? So when you know, okay, cool, we're coming up to a pay-per-view event, UFC. Caroline, you're going to be on this event. And then yourself, you think, right, time to get to work. What's that process?
Well, one thing I'll say is that it never switches off. So you might only see me do maybe the numbered events, or we don't even do all of them sometimes in terms of on the ground, but it doesn't switch off. I am, every morning when I'm putting my makeup on or I'm on the treadmill or whatever, I'm either watching Ariel Helwani's show with DC, I've got YouTube videos playing. So it never switches off. And I think that's what's become key over time, is that you're not just picking up the notes and starting to watch something. Maybe I'll do that with other sports that I'm not 24/7 engrossed in. You know, if I get other opportunities in other sports, it's like, okay, right, let's go into prep mode. But with UFC for me now, it never switches off. It's like I'm a fan. I am a fan, and that's my passion. And then, but when it comes to, obviously, you've got to structure that. And I think a lot of fans have a lot of information, and what's important to understand is that we then have to put all that information that we're absorbing into some kind of structure that gets us to a presentation. So for example, a lot of these events, I've been lucky to have a sit down interview with Dana White, usually on the Friday after weigh-ins. So yeah, myself, Max Bentley from BT Sport, the team.
I love Max.
We have a call. Max is the best. Max is awesome. Yeah, we talk regularly, and we're keeping in touch about events. And I'm always coming to him. I can get hold of this fighter. They're just down the road. Let me go interview them. And you know, we're looking to get some more individual interviews going as well outside of the fight weeks. So we're talking. We go through question areas, topics, etc. And then I go about sort of listing my questions for Dana. But what's going on as I get closer, other media are talking to him. So I'm trying to pick up, well, what's he already answered? What's, what's maybe no longer relevant because he's already dismissed that, etc. And sometimes you get there and you think, he's answered all the questions. But you have to remember that for maybe our BT Sport fans haven't watched all of the interviews I have. So it's still relevant information. The fight night itself for me is a case of, I pretty much know the majority of the roster now. There'll be a few newer fighters or some that I haven't fought for a while, and I want to just get up to speed on their latest fight. So I'll go back and watch some stuff, but it's just watching interviews and just kind of getting, I like the surrounding information, the family, the team, where they've been training, who they've been training with, how that fits into the puzzle of the division as a whole. You know, where does that put them with a win? And then when it comes to fight night, I actually am just having fun. The notes are there, they're barely referenced. Then it's just a case of watching the fights, responding, asking the question, knowing, you know, how did you get there? What did you do? Where do we go next? But the last event I did in Florida, 3 title fights, horrific night. Chris Weidman snapped his leg as well. It was a funny night as a whole, but I was backstage for the first time. We had a full arena.
Hey, Tom Brady was there. It was a big night. I see that. You and Tom Brady. I saw the picture.
Maybe I posted that a few times. Yeah.
Hey, you should.
I don't get starstruck very often, but you know, Tom Brady, especially out here in the US, is just huge. And my boyfriend's a massive NFL fan, Brady fan. And there's a funny story there. So we're backstage in Jacksonville, and he'd walked past the first time. And my producer with me, Rick, had gone, because I was getting all the behind the scenes for
doing the social stories Instagram. As well.
I love doing that. I was doing the socials, and we're going to do more of that because that was really fun. backstage is where all the activity goes on. The celebs and the teams like talking to their fighters after the fight. The fighters will sit with us and watch the fights. It's so much fun. So he was like, Caroline, Tom Brady. So I'm trying to get my camera to like catch him for the stories. And I kind of caught the tail end of it. I was like, okay, I posted it and I was like, Tom Brady made it, you know, and I think other outlets picked it up and posted it. So that was that. Next time he comes around, I get the camera because I only got the tail end of him walking away. So I get it and I was like, hey, Tom, say hi to BT Sport. And he looked a little kind of, oh, hi, you know, embarrassed. Okay, I get this all the time. Third time he walks by, I was like, okay, this is my chance. I'm going to talk to him. So I'm over here, sir. I throw Rick my phone. I was like, a photo. And he stops and he was being very sweet. It was like, hi, how are you doing? I was like, hi, and you know, I said, you know, great to see you here. And there was so much I wish I'd said in that moment. Asked him about the fight, who he was favoring, whatever. And all I could bring myself to say was, my boyfriend's a big fan of yours. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a professional. I'm here with a camera with an opportunity to get some questions from you. And I did. I had a fangirl moment. And I got my photo. Amazing. I was grinning ear to ear. He was very sweet. He stopped and chatted a bit after that. He was sort of, you know, doing, etc. But yeah, he was just soaking it all in backstage and walking up and down with his friends and watching the fights. And I love it when you see other athletes or celebrities that are huge fight fans, because wherever you go, they will talk to you about fights and they get so excited to speak to another fellow fight fan. So that was a fun moment. But just all in all, being backstage and Kamaru Usman, you know, with his belt, got his little daughter in our interview and she'd stood by his feet. So they're the moments that I feel so lucky to do what I do and to be in that moment with you know, these amazing athletes and all the other people that have gone into getting them that win, you know, their coaches, their teams, the girlfriends, the boyfriends, the children, you know, it's an incredible experience. But likewise, when you see what happened to Chris Weidman and he's wheeled past us, you know, screaming, it took a while for us all to, there was 3 title fights to come. And Uriah Hall, who he was fighting, is a really good friend of mine. And he was just kind of speechless for a while. And
how incredible was Uriah as well. Like the way he handled that. He was, I mean, the calm Uriah is a great Uriah. And the way he handled that was just incredible.
The thing with Uriah is, a lot of fighters, the fighters are athletes and they're mixed martial artists. And some of them, I think, are your street fighters, you know, that will say the words a lot like Jorge Masvidal, I'm going to create violence. Uriah's not that guy. He's not a violent fighter in that sense. So for him, he said to me afterwards, we spoke and he said, all I could think about, because the camera was on him, they didn't want to be on Chris, that wasn't fair. He said, all I could think about was his children and his wife, because his children were there watching. And he's an incredibly respectful, kind of emotional, considered fighter that's incredibly talented at what he does. And it was a shame for him as well. You know, he didn't want to be the one that, you know, who's not that he did anything. He didn't even throw a single kick or punch. But yeah, that was a tough one for him. But I've been following, you know, I think Chris Weidman he's already walking with an anti-gravity treadmill. The level of rehab you can do now, and sports science is my background anyway, so I'm mind blown by all of this and following his journey. And you know, hope Chris gets better and hopefully back to fighting again.
Absolutely. He it was quite incredible how quickly, you know, in I think it was with Ariel when he was saying he's back walking, what madman. I got to ask, what was it like having fans again, and the occasion of that moment? It must have felt so surreal from having covered many of the Apex events with, you know, very limited people in attendance that kind of started having celebrities appear at the end. And then here you are back and, you know, the arena's buzzing. All the content you were getting backstage was incredible. Like with Valentina and Rose having their little moment as well. That night just felt like magic. The fights were incredible, but everything just seemed unstoppable.
It was, I was on a high for days. It was so good because I'd only done a few of the events at the Apex, but kind of got used to it. It was kind of felt quite corporate. We had you know, like you were almost pre-recording a show in a way, because I didn't even see the arena at the Apex. I didn't see any of the action live. The fighters would just be brought to us backstage. We were in separated little segments with our camera and our backdrop. And we did the interview, and of course, it's always great, and just was appreciated at the time that still working, still having the opportunities to do this. But when we were in Jacksonville, and the UFC PR team said to me, because normally it's quite specific where the UFC will let you, depending on what path you have, you know, in terms of movement around backstage. It has to be, because there's, you know, fighters and medics and people that need to, not cross certain boundaries with where they go. We can't be wandering around where they're trying to get medical assistance, etc. So usually I don't get to go into the arena. I get close enough, but I don't go into it. We're backstage. But they said, no, come on, you've got to come in and watch one of the earlier fights. So before we sort of got into our interviews, I watched a couple of the prelim fights, and usually for the prelims, it's not very full. The arena's not particularly full, but this was like I think it was fight of the night as well, the one I watched.
Yeah,
it was now. And it was almost 3/4 full at that point. I couldn't believe it. The atmosphere was incredible. There's different arenas that are set up differently. When we're at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, our backstage environment isn't that great because we're in just a room. I could be in my room here. We're just in a room, and the fighters come into us. Whereas you get some of the arenas like the old MGM, when we're at the MGM Grand before, and here and then the ones in Houston, Jacksonville. I don't know what Arizona will be like, where you're literally under the stands. So that's where you get that atmosphere and that roaming around and get all that behind the scene action. But it was incredible. And even a lot of fighters that had got to the point where they said, I quite like fighting without a crowd. I can think, I can hear. They all said, no, this is what we do it for. This made a huge difference. So it felt like life was somewhat normal again. And I didn't have to wear the mask to interview because I had all these tests and whatever. And the state of Florida, doesn't require it. So it felt free. Definitely felt free.
So, especially on the undercard, the prelims, it was, like you said, it was incredible how packed out the reactions were. I've been so lucky to attend plenty of UFC events in London, but I've had the pleasure of going to UFC 208 when it was Durand May versus Home. I went there just as a fan. Yeah. Same with Bisping GSP at 217. Yeah. So I've seen how it's kind of crazy because it's like you kind of have the local fans or like maybe international fans that get down early, families or whatnot. Yeah. But the house was packed. It was just absolutely mind blowing. I got to touch upon. Sorry, please.
No, it's just, sorry, because you made a good point, and I always say to people, even if you're not a UFC fan or you're not familiar with the sport, you will enjoy a live event. If you ever get an opportunity to get a ticket and go, just because of the way the UFC do the production and the performance is second to none.
Well, that's it, right? It's no matter who, and I think this is what you got to realize is, when you go to these events, you just never know who are down on these cards. Like if I'm just looking here on the wiki, like back at 208, had Islam Makhachev on the prelims, like Bilal Muhammad was on there as well. Dustin Poirier opened up the main card when I was there. 217. I mean, goodness me, we had.
I was there working that one. Yeah.
217 was unbelievable. We kind of saw, Masvidal. I mean, I think a lot of people forget. We had Wonder Boy versus Masvidal on that card.
Yeah.
James Vick and Joe Duffy was an incredible fast, second round finish, and Curtis Blades was on the Olenek they were on a prelim card, like the second fight.
And now we're seeing them, at the top of the card.
You know what I mean? So you have to I guess what we're kind of trying to get at here is like, if for people that are kind of curious or haven't been to a UFC event yet, once this world opens up, don't be a fool and just think, oh, I'm going to turn up for the main card. You just never know who you're gonna
But
meet.
I think things have changed. People are craving that sport environment. Absolutely. Again, I think people are going to be there from the beginning, but the tickets are selling out so fast. All of these events now, the tickets are going in a flash. They really are.
You got to get on there quick. I mean, it's you just never know. You just never know who's the next superstar. And I think that's something I want to come up on, Caroline. I've seen you've been asked this before. Of course, yourself, Caroline, being part of BT, being a part of the UFC journey, you have interviewed many of time one of the two people I wish I could ever get a chance to speak to. One person being Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That would be mind blowing if I ever spoke to him. And secondly, of course, the notorious one, Conor McGregor. Now, you have almost journaled, chronicled, and been a part of that journey because you've interviewed in many stages throughout his career.
Yeah.
One, what is the recipe to success as far as making a great interview with, with someone that you would consider like a superstar, super famous? What is the Caroline approach to, adding your flavor to it?
Do you know what? Maybe if I was given, if I'd never interviewed or met Conor before and I was given an opportunity to interview him now, maybe it would be a little bit different. That kind of how I'd approach it would be a little bit different. But like you said, I've interviewed Conor from the beginning of his UFC career. So we had him on the sofa in the BT Sports Studios with John Kavanagh by his side. I I'd only done, I think, maybe 1 or 2 fights in the UFC. And then I was there when he headlined Dublin, etc. I've been, so I think with myself and interviewing Conor, I see Conor's incredibly graceful with me. I mean, when I've had my back injuries and so forth, Conor has messaged me and try this, Caroline, try this exercise. He knows and respects my background as an athlete and my training. And, you know, we'll talk about training specifically and so forth and fights, not all the time, but, you know, from time to time. So, you know, I've met Dee and the family. So I think because I've been talking to him reasonably regularly throughout his UFC tenure, if you like, the conversations for me are just one of, I'm excited about it. You know, I'm aware Conor's a huge star. Of course he is. And I'm fascinated by him and the way his mind works. To me, he's one of those very rare individuals that thinks differently. And it's not that rare within sport, but not just in terms of his sports, but his business and his brand and how he's become the incredible force he is, win or lose, if you like. So for me, an interview with Conor is more about, great, I get to talk to Conor again. This is exciting. Because I haven't done actually, you know, in person for quite some time. So the preparation is just about how do I get the best out of an interview with Conor, like I would anybody else. But I think being very mindful of, you know, let him do the speaking. You know, people aren't here to listen to me. I'm just guiding this thing. So a good example, and I posted it recently because I'm revamping my show reel as we do as presenters from time to time, updating material, etc.
Of course.
And I came back across an interview I did with Conor in Scotland, and it was a live interview. It wasn't, I mean, it was filmed, but it wasn't for television. It was for Kong events. So it was a live audience event, and we packed out this, wasn't an arena, but, you know, a huge staged area with fans that come to just watch him be interviewed. And it was just after, it was the first interview he did after the Mayweather fight, apart from the immediate, you know, press he did then. So we're on stage, and I remember thinking, oh, you know, he's coming off that loss. I didn't know what kind of, didn't really have a chance to speak to him before we went on stage. So I thought, well, I don't know where he's at. You know, I don't know whether he's happy he did it and earned the money, or whether, you know, and actually, as much as jokes were made, like, the money, show me the money, all that kind of stuff, he was so thought out, and very, like, the intricate details he was giving regarding how the fight played out, what he felt, you know, could have been different, etc. And there was genuine frustration that he hadn't won that fight. And I think a lot of people thought, well, you won all that money, you know, what a great spectacle, but he's an athlete and he wanted to win that. It doesn't matter that it's Floyd Mayweather, it doesn't matter. And so that was very interesting to me. And again, just heightened the competitor, the athlete within him. And you know, I've done interviews with Conor after his loss to Nate Diaz the first time as well. And they're interviews that you think, how, you know, they're hard. Those interviews where someone's lost are hard, especially when all week you're building it up. But again, just so measured, so thought out with how he can read a fight, even in those minutes afterwards. So the short answer is, I've always, you treat someone like a person. You treat them like a person with the emotions that might be attached, and let them talk, you know.
And that's so important.
Hopefully I'll get to do it again soon.
Well, that's a great thing. And, you know, that is the most important thing with any interview, is just, you know, treating them as a person. And that's one thing I've heard you talk about before about Conor interviews. He addresses you by name. It's not like there's a kind of a different level there. When you're in the same room, it's almost just human to human. Sure, you got an incredible athlete across from you, and you're as a respected TV presenter there, but he addresses you by name, and the level is mutual. And I think that's such an important thing to also make someone comfortable. Another person, no, please.
Oh, I just, something people might not be aware of as well is when you are interviewing one of the big stars. Like, I remember when I've interviewed Ronda Rousey back in the day and so forth. It's not so much, and I'd probably felt a little, I didn't know Ronda that personally, so I was probably a little more nervous for sort of a Ronda interview, you know, such a big star even now, but, you know, in the height of her MMA career. It's not just that you're sitting across from someone like Ronda, it's the entourage of people that are in your periphery when you're interviewing someone like that have very specifically said what you can and can't talk about sometimes. Not always, it's very rare they say that. There was a couple of subjects. So it's more about, you know, there's Ronda, there's me, there's several cameras, but then there's all the UFC PR, all of her entourage. So it's a different experience. That's what feels a little bit more high pressured, and I just have to zone in on who I'm talking to. Same with Dana White, you know, there's people checking what's being said, and he'll sometimes reference them for stats and so forth. So that's what comes with interviewing someone that, you know, that's a big star.
Very true. I think that's, you know, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people will appreciate and realize when you get to that kind of broadcast level, it is another thing. And I've been so lucky only a couple of weeks ago to do what felt like the first time, to be honest, the first time properly ever doing face-to-face interviews with WWE superstars, and you have to almost focus down and be like, forget about everyone there. It's quite the thing. But you touch upon Dana as well. I absolutely love Dana as a businessman, as a character, as a whatever.
Yeah.
Of course, for some MMA fans, he's a bit Marmite. But for yourself, how great is it to work with Dana? Of course, he's across everything. He knows everyone. He knows what's coming in and out of his doors. He seems like generally seems like a great guy to work around.
Yeah, Dana's great, and I've interviewed him, can't even count how many times over the years. And Dana, you know, you have to read Dana, because there's times when I can tell he's very relaxed and he's just going to talk and whatever, and other times you've got to think how many things are going on for that man. Say I'm getting to interview him just after the weigh-ins. I remember, I can't remember what fight it was now, a few fights ago, he was delivered some news in his ear just before he sat down. I don't think it was good news. I think it was something to do with one fighter's weight cut, or someone had been taken to hospital. So he's then got to acknowledge that, and then he's doing an interview with me. So sometimes it's being very mindful of how much Dana's going to give you, because sometimes he doesn't know the answer. We're always trying to ask him matchups and fights. Sometimes they just don't know yet, or they're not able to say it yet as well. So an interview with Dana is very, in those kind of sit down environments, is being very mindful of his kind of, what point of the fight week are we, how much time does he have. So I'm always very considered about that, and try to be anyway in an interview with Dana. The post-fight interviews are always fun. He's buzzing. He's just like a fan as well. You know, he's buzzing about certain fights and certain athletes, etc. But Dana's great, and considering how busy that man is and everything going on for him, he gives us his time, and he's always very graceful with his time, and very friendly towards me. You know, I'm obviously a familiar face to him. I think he laughs at me a little bit sometimes. I remember sometimes we're doing a scrum. So when we sort of post-fight big events like, you know, the Conor fights, etc., and he won't necessarily go around and do each broadcast media individually, like the rights holder. He'd say, the PR say he'd do it as a scrum. And a scrum's a funny situation. It's a real balance between, you need to get your question in because BT want their microphone shown on camera with the question, and so do other people. So there's a little bit of a juggling act. And I guess sometimes I'm an athlete, I'm competitive, and you know, apologies to any of my fellow journalists if I'm jumping in there a little quick sometimes. So I remember one time it was like Dana's red. I'm like, Dana, and I'm in like a shot, and he was like, of course you'd have a question, wouldn't you? You know, this is kind of little comment. He's like, oh, I thought you'd have a question, Caroline, or something like that. And it was friendly, it was fun. But yeah, I guess that competitor in me sort of wants to jump in and get the first question. And then, you know, there's times that, you know, if John Morgan's in the room, it's just, everyone knows John Morgan goes first. So, you know, it's an interesting dynamic. It's always better to get a one-on-one, but the scrums can be kind of fun.
It's something that just, I think, will never escape you, Caroline, as being the competitor and the athlete. And it's, you know, it's something that's defined your life and career. And of course, as I've seen and seen on your journey, like, as you touched upon earlier in this interview, how, you know, not only is UFC, you know, in your blood, but, you know, you being a fitness expert. And of course, power play has been something that's been something you're really passionate about and been a part of for so long. And of course, recently, I was actually very mind-blown to see, first seeing it shared on your Instagram content, Mark Wahlberg is part of the Power Plate team now as an investor, strategy member. Just how huge is that? Because Mark Wahlberg, goodness me, he's another guy who's pretty busy. He's got a lot of, you know, fingers and a lot of pies. Mark Wahlberg, Power Plate. How did this come about? Yeah.
So this wasn't a case of let's bring what celebrity can we find at Power Plate to bring into the brand. Mark has been an avid user of Power Plate vibration. If people don't know, it's vibration training technology, vibration machines, for 15 years, you know, almost as long as I have. You know, Mark's that famous, was it 3 a.m., 4 a.m. club? You know, he's always filmed and seen in his gym at crazy early hours of the morning. And Power Plate is always there, whether you see him on it or it's in the background. Like, that's a staple piece of the way he trains. He's about results. Now, Power Plate and vibration technology accelerates muscle contraction, increases blood flow, helps to grow muscle mass. increases testosterone and human growth hormone naturally, helps with rehabilitation because it's three-dimensional movement. I could talk for hours about the benefits of vibration training. So if you're a busy person, as Mark is, and you want to get in that quick kind of muscle pump, blood flow, opportunity to build muscle, combine it with other bits of equipment, it's a no-brainer. There's pictures of Jennifer Lopez and The Rock on a power plate. You know, there's so many celebrities, but it came out of Mark. It was just a very natural fit because he's been using it for so long. I train his trainer, Shannon Helm, who travels all around with him. I've trained her on power plate through our accredited course, so she can best guide him on it and what he does on it and so forth. So it was just a very natural fit and a brand that he was passionate about. You know, he has his F45 training facilities as well. We hope to get what we call our portable power plate units into those facilities, because they're the ones that you can do classes with and move from place to place. I literally have one over here. So it's just this fantastic relationship and business partnership with somebody that as passionate as we all are about it, you know. And once you've used the technology, it's very hard to feel like you've got warmed up properly, got your pump on enough without utilizing vibration technologies. So I've been lucky to meet Mark Wahlberg a couple of times, and hopefully, you know, we'll look to do much more with him. He's going to have an active role, as you say, and be really great for the company. And I think it's with any brand that I represent or with other people represent, I think it's obvious whether that person genuinely incorporates it into their life, you know. And like I said, I've been working with it for 17 odd years. So, and that's what's very genuine about Mark's relationship and partnership with us.
It's incredible. I've been very lucky to been members of gyms that use power plates, and as a very non-professional person of the fitness world, I can definitely vouch to say that it is very incredible. You can, you know, I've from seeing your content as well, Caroline. You know, you share a lot of great tips, and you know about your fitness and about the way you share your content. What is there an end goal in the fitness world as far as, you know, what you are as a trainer and how you share these tips, or is it just is it just a never-ending canvas that you can continue to add to?
Well, there's always goals. I don't do anything without there being a structure or a goal to what I'm doing, but it is never ending in the sense the industry is just growing and growing. And to be honest, during the pandemic, television for me slowed considerably. I was a host of the Professional Fighters League on ESPN for the first 2 seasons. The whole season got cancelled. I didn't get to come back for the following season. Other things that I do televised also came to an end. But what I was doing in the fitness space just grew and grew, because suddenly what do we do when we're stuck at home and we need some kind of outlet, or we want to work out, we want to move, we want to release those endorphins? What about people that were living such that kind of rat race, fast-paced life? They didn't have a chance to go to the gym. Well, now home workouts become so much more accessible. So I found myself, I'd already started working a year before with FitOn app, which is the app that I work with. It's a free app. There's upgrade opportunities to go pro to get your diet and nutrition as well, but all of the workouts are available for free. And we were able to continue with live workouts, creating more content, etc., from our own homes, pushing the app, etc. And our growth was off the chart. And myself and the other trainers on the app is everything from yoga, Pilates, strength training, HIIT training, dance. Halle Berry's partnered with us now with her system of training. We've got Orange Theory on there. It's endless. So I found so much satisfaction in all the women and men writing to me saying, you kept me going during lockdown, your workouts have got me in shape, I never would have done this. So that for me was a huge passion. So one of my goals is we're going to continue to build out this thing and grow. And I'm, again, so happy I was part of it from the beginning, which is something I love, being part of things from the offset and seeing things grow. My work with PowerPlate, we have, again, so many goals with the development of the technology and where we take it. And then for me personally, I mean, personal brand growth and spreading the word on science and education. Recovery is a huge part of what I talk about. One of the reasons I love PowerPlate so much, I can train hard still, like I did when I was in my 20s. I can't recover as fast. I go do a maximum squat. There's 2-3 days when I'm not squatting again.
Important.
So yeah, so a huge part of what I do now is working with brands or technology, or just sharing insights on recovery, injury prevention, rehab, all that kind of thing. So it's ongoing in that sense, but there's definitely lots of structure around what I'm trying to create, and actually emerging sports and the fitness world as well. And talking about power play, you know, Robbie
Pick up
Robbie
Robbie.
Lawler. I don't know if Robbie Williams did.
Ruthless Robbie,
used,
yeah.
Used power play with his knee rehabilitation, and you know, we talked over that, and we got him a machine, and you know, and he did a lot of his rehab using power plate as well. So there's a lot of crossover between what I do in. I train with Uriah Hall quite a bit as well when he comes into town, and we go to, you know, the facilities here. So that's a big goal of mine now, is to marry up my partnerships and relationships within sport and the kind of technology and science of sport, bring that together.
I mean, it's your end. I mean, I look at your content across social, and I see how endlessly busy you are, and I think that's important in the way this world has been in the past year and a half. You know, everyone stuck at home has been looking for inspiration and wanting, and you're passionate. You know, just bleeds that, as you see. You are really a true master of your craft. And touching on the FitOn app as well, like I did my research, and you know, it's I can vouch and say that obviously, like, lockdown in general for me on a fitness journey was the best use of time, really. When I got to see friends again, shed, you know, I kind of shaped up a bit better, lost a lot of body fat, and my friends were like, "Whoa, what happened?" I just said, "Look, it's the pandemic, because there's nothing else to do other than doing this channel, interviewing people and working out. That's all that really was, home workouts." And you know, I think what's so great about the FitOn app as well is, you know, it's giving people the tools to go and get that nutrition. You know, it's not only the workouts, the meditation, the trainers, the nutrition, everything, but also the proof is in the pudding, because the feedback is pretty darn good. I had a look, the Apple, it's a 4.9, over 200, almost 200,000 reviews. Now that just says it all, right?
I mean, there's millions of minutes completed on the app. It's phenomenal, the stats. It's been, and a great team, you know. Do you know what I think with anything? Surround yourself with good people, hardworking people that share the same passions that you have, and we all do. And see something through, you know. With everything I've done, I've always wanted to be part of it for a long time. And sometimes those opportunities are taken away from you, you know, sooner than you want. You know, television can be one of those things. You know, you don't necessarily get the ownership over the length of certain shows or careers and things. But in terms of what you're doing with your show now and what I do in fitness, you have that control, and you have that. And I think it's important in your work life to have certain things that you determine, you know, that you get to determine when you do it, how much you do, whether it continues or not, because it's a tough industry. You know, television entertainment can be a tough industry, and it can just be, I've had experiences where, you know, I did the show Gladiators, and then that's it, it's over, you know, and you think you're going to do 10 years of it and so forth, but everything opens up another door. But, you know, it comes back to just keep fingers in different pies of which you're passionate about, and, you know, and keep reinventing, or keep pushing forward.
You are certainly relentless when it comes to the things you love and do. It's been so exciting from a distance watching you do your thing. And of course, you know, as we kind of wind down, where I'm getting ever so close to UFC 263. How excited are you about that event? You know, Israel versus Vittori. I wish it was Darren Till, with my good buddy Darren Till.
I know,
healthy enough.
I know.
Figueiredo Moreno too, and of course Rocky Edwards versus Nate Diaz. It's just I'm hyped. But for yourself, just how are you feeling going into this?
I am so excited, because I have been booked to get on a plane for a Leon Edwards fight many times.
Forever.
And the poor man, that whether he's had COVID or, you know, and we've like, no, we're going to push it back. So I am just praying that this fight between Leon and Nate Diaz happens. I believe it will this time. I think it will. Let's not even speak that into existence. It will happen. You know, the title fight as well, Adesanya Vittori. It's just going to be an incredible night. I'll be backstage again with BT Sport, bringing the behind the scenes on the social media, bringing the interviews, and I think we're full arena again in Arizona. So I think we're being for quite a treat. Who's your money on? I was like, see, I'm going into my interviewer mode now. Okay. So who's your money on in the main event?
Okay, so if I'm going to work off the top three fights, so let's start. I truly believe Leon Edwards will get it done. I asked him today. I said, "Well, how do you see it? Do you want a Nate Diaz bloodbath, go the distance, or?" He's very happy to see it, despite the stop-start nature he's had over the last couple of years. If he can get it done in one round, he's very happy to get that done. I just think his patience and control. the reach. I think Nate hasn't fought since 2019. So for me, it's like, what kind of a Nate is going to go into that octagon? Of course, he's always gonna be
always a dangerous Nate. Yeah, it's always going to be a dangerous thing.
But that's a long time. That is a long time. So I just think it's Leon's moment. If Leon to make that jump to the title, this is the fight that's going to put his name, get the star power, and there'll be no disputing he deserves to get that title fight. Figueiredo Moreno 100%. Is interesting. For me, I really wanted Moreno to win, and I think Moreno will I don't know. It's very tricky, but rather than looking at it professionally, I hope Moreno wins. I think I was very sad for him not to get done. Not taking any away from Davinson. He's an awesome champ, a great hairdresser as well, of course. So I'm willing to sit back and enjoy that fight and just enjoy it. The main event, it will be really interesting, right? Vettori, his journey has been great recently. Of course, he fought Adesanya before, didn't go to plan. Now as Israel as a champion, but Israel off the back of a loss. This will be what will be interesting. I think lots of fans, I think, will be quick to write off Adesanya, but I don't think they don't understand that the challenge to fight Yan for the lightweight title was incredible, but brave. But look, Israel didn't walk away from that fight with any damage. I have a good feeling, as a professional he is and a great champion is, I think it'll be comfortable for Israel. No idea how it will finish, but yes, it's just one of those. It's one of those cards where I can, apart from the Leon fight, I can sit back and go, I'm just going to enjoy it and see where it goes. I mean, what do you think? Do you think my picks am I picking well? Is it controversial?
I won't give predictions out loud because I kind of can't really. But
you can't. No.
But I'll make some. I kind of deduce some things, and I think with the main event, you say Adesanya. Now, Adesanya coming off a loss, I don't think will affect him in his own division for a couple of reasons. One, as he pointed out, he's lost before. It's not like he hasn't lost before in other sports as well. But there's another way to look at it. Sometimes rematches can often favor the person that lost. In the case of Vettori, in the case of Moreno, and when someone like Adesanya is beaten, sometimes a blueprint can be established for how to beat them in some senses, but Vettori doesn't have the weight, the size that Yan has. So would it even work? So I know I'm just sort of throwing some what ifs and maybes out there, but you can't deny how phenomenal and how dominant Adesanya has been in the middleweight division. But I think it's going to be a good fight. I agree. Likewise with Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards, we're Brits. We're going to be behind Leon. You know, I think he has the tools, the patience. I think he has the fight maturity as well. I think he's really shown in these, even though he hasn't particularly fought, in these recent months and year and so forth. But Nate Diaz is always dangerous. So I'm just really excited for that one as well. And then I was there for Figueiredo Moreno the first time. It was very close. And again, I think sometimes the rematch can favor the one that lost, even if it was, a very close loss. Who knows? They both got a read on each other. So I think, again, we're probably going to be treated to a back and forth. But it's just, I think, in light of what we've both said, it's just like, don't blink, because it could go either way in every fight.
And just to hear fans again, and just to have the broadcast team as well, whether it's John, Joe, DC, or even Dominic Cruz, like they are infused just by the fact that our fans are back there. And look, Caroline, I'm just excited to see what kind of celebrities as well you're going to be snapping up backstage again, because it's a hot ticket.
Sometimes we get a list. We get a little list at the beginning of the night of who's expected to be there, and kind of keep an eye out. I must admit, sometimes there's people I've never heard of because they might be American sports stars. I'm having to say, who's that? But yeah, it's always very exciting, so I can't wait.
Well, Caroline, I shall hold you no longer. I just want to say it's been awesome to catch up, to hear about the journey, reconnect the dots, to hear just all the incredible things that's happening across Power Play, FitOn, and UFC, BT. Caroline, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting.
And congratulations on your show. You're doing awesome. And thank you for having me amongst all the stars that you've been talking to. I appreciate it. So thank you.
We shall keep in touch. And until next time, we'll see you then.
See you later.